Hello, Flyers fans, and welcome into our chat here with a couple of folks from the NHL Quarter Century team presented by SAP for the Philadelphia Flyers, just recently unveiled. Danny Briere and Brian Boucher with us here as we start to talk about these teams that are coming out. And they're coming out all over the league, and the Flyers team is now out, both of you on it. So, again, we're looking at specifically the last 25 years, which, believe it or not, one of your years doesn't even qualify. I don't think your rookie year is beyond the scope of this. So it's
how the heck did I get here?
But we certainly saw quite a bit of action here in those last 25 years, and both of you guys were in the center of it. Danny, let's start with you. I want to take you back to when you came here.
Yeah.
That was a big summer for free agents around the league, and Flyers were looking to turn things around. Tell us about that negotiation, I guess, and what made you decide to come here?
Well, the negotiation was the easy part.
Okay.
The decision was the tough one. It was my first time becoming a free agent, and good or bad, I mean, there's a lot of teams interested, and there's some tough decisions to be made. It's never been a secret with the teams that were involved, and it was a chance maybe to go back to my hometown, Montreal, or come to Philly. And my head kept telling me, Philadelphia is in the right direction with all the young guys. Some of the guys are on this list, like Mike Richards, especially. So it was a really tough decision, but I wanted to be part of something special. Team that had a chance to win a Stanley Cup, in the years that I was going to play, and I certainly don't regret that decision.
Bouch, you came back in 2009. That, of course, ended up being the run to the final. What were the circumstances that brought you back at that particular time?
Well, it's funny. I remember when Danny signed here because I signed a minor league contract to play for the Phantoms that year, and I remember him coming in, with his family and. My goal was to just get back to the NHL, and I wanted to go to the minors and play and get my confidence back. And I ended up going to San Jose for a year and a bit, and then it ended up working out where I came back to Philadelphia in 2009, 2010. So I was shocked that Paul Holmgren wanted me back. I mean, the deal was he wanted me to. He understood when I came here to play in the minors that I just wanted to get my game in order. I had no idea that he would have any interest in me again down the road a year and a half later, but thank God he did. And it was that 2009, 2010 year was one fun year. I mean, we had a real great group of guys with a ton of character. The way we got into the playoffs and then what we did in the playoffs was magical. It's just unfortunate that we never got the job done in the end, but a year that I will always remember.
We'll certainly get back to that year in a moment. First, though, Danny, I just wanted to ask you about your first year here. Bouch, I know you weren't here for that year, but that was the year where the Flyers had their worst year in their history the year before, and they turn around. You have a 56-point improvement, biggest one-year turnaround in NHL history, I think. Tell us a little bit about that year from your perspective, not having been there the year before, but I'm sure you were around a lot of guys who were and kind of knew kind of what was going on there as you end up in the conference final.
Yeah, there's a few reasons. I mean, to start with, guys like Richards and Carter were just on the cusp of becoming star players, and I think everybody knew that. It was just a matter of time. Also that summer, there's Kimmo Timonen and Scott Hartnell trade and sign, just before free agency. There's also a trade where Jason Smith, I believe, and Jeffrey Lupul came aboard. So that was all in the same time that I signed. So there's a lot of addition that all arrived together, and it was rocky at times. There's some ups and downs even that season for us to gel and come together. But it ended up being a pretty good season, and we took it to the conference final. A lot of injuries. At the end, we faced a Pittsburgh team that was clicking at the time and were really playing well. I'm not saying we would have won, but probably could have made a better series in the conference final if we would have had found a way to stay healthy.
So speaking of rocky things during the season, I guess that takes us back to the 2009-10 year. As a lot of people certainly remember how it ended, but right after Christmas, the team was third from last, I think, in the conference, and all of a sudden started turning it around. And I seem to remember there was a practice in Tampa that was canceled because of a sewage leak, and everybody kind of throw your hands up like, what's next? And from there, it just kind of took off. What do you remember about the turnaround of that season, I guess, from your perspective?
Well, the interesting part is that we claimed Michael Layton off waivers during that time, and I got injured right the game before you guys went to Tampa. I got hurt here at home, and we started the winning streak, ironically, right then and there. And Late's played great. I mean, he deserves a lot of credit for getting that season back on track. I mean, we had Ray Emery, myself, and Michael Layton, and I think Johan Bachland was part of that crew as well. And guys would get hurt, guys would step in, and it was just one of those things where Lates did a job up until March. Then he got hurt. Then I had to come in. Then I got hurt in the playoffs, and he had to come in. So it felt like we were a team of destiny. It didn't end up being that way in the end, but it was one heck of a ride. I don't think anybody would have imagined that we would have ended up where we did if, like you were saying, right around Christmas time.
Yeah,
and it was funny. We, looking at the lineup on paper, we definitely had a team that was supposed
team was
to do
picked
some,
to win the cup that year, but the hockey
to do some damage. So we didn't deliver early on. But like Bush said, along the way we started to get our swagger back, and guys started playing better as a team. I think individually we were doing okay, but we started to gel in the second half of the year. Went on that little run, and funny enough, late we kind of had a little dip at the end too. We almost missed the playoff, and that's why we had to play. And when I talk to people about that run, it started, that 2-month playoff run started with the last regular season game against the Rangers. One of the most dramatic ending of a regular season that the NHL has ever seen, led by Boucher's big saves in the shootout.
Yeah, tell me
Danny's goal.
Tell me your memories of that game, because I know he has a lot to say about it. We'll get to him in a second. But what were your memories of that game? Because I mean, a lot of people forget Flyers were losing until 4 minutes left in the third, I think, until Matt Carl scored.
My memory of that game was that we dominated the game pretty much the whole time. I remember Henrik Lundqvist saying after the game it was one of the most demanding game that he had ever played, because it felt like we were in their zone the whole night, just peppering them, and he kept turning saves after saves, and finally I think it was Matt Carl that beat him late in the third period to tie the game. And then it felt like they were playing for a shootout. They had a lot of success, and Henrik Lundqvist is one of the best goalie in a shootout at that time, and it felt they just wanted to take it there. That was my feeling how the game was played. And it all came down to that. And the part that's not really talked about a lot is that we practiced the shootout the day before.
Okay.
No, I don't know if Lavi had an inkling that the game could get there. And he grabbed 5 shooters, and we had to practice on Bush and pick some moves that we would try on Lundqvist. And, I knew going in what I had to do, because I had studied him the day before and practiced my shootout move, and it worked. I don't know if you had studied all the shooters,
somewhere
but
in the way.
They threw some curveball at us, too, with the players they sent.
Parento came out, I was like, whoa, where's this guy coming from? And then Jokinen was skating around the far end circle. He looked like Dean Youngblood there from Youngblood. Yeah, I mean, that was a crazy, that game. I agree with you. We outplayed them badly, and I got the sense that they were trying to hang on for a 1-0 win, and then once we got it to 1-1, it was all about the shootout. And you say Lundqvist is one of the best. He's the best. I mean, this
73%
guy,
save percentage,
I mean,
something like that year.
I think he might have been one of the first goalies that actually practiced breakaways and warm up. There was no goalie that would do that at the NHL at that time. Yeah. Any goaltender that would do that, there's got to be something wrong with them, because most guys don't want to get lit up and warm up because they want to feel good for the game. That's how good he was. And I don't know, him scoring first was huge. I mean, when you set the tone that way, it kind of settles you down a little bit. Obviously, you got to make the first save. It helps. If I give up that first one to Christensen, maybe it goes a different way. And I should have stopped the second one, but when G scored, I'm just thankful that it was Jokinen that hopped the boards and maybe not Gabrick. I think Gabrick still was available on the bench and Torts was coaching. Yeah, so I don't know. It just worked out. Sometimes work out in your favor. And boy, what a moment! I don't know if I'd ever want to do that ever again because a ton of pressure. To have one shot to do it all. I'd rather have it be a team thing, like an overtime. But to come through in that situation, and especially at home, to have the crowd behind you, it was the most memorable moment of my career.
When people ask me about it, I don't even remember the crowd, the building. I don't even remember if it was silent, they were standing up screaming, if they were sitting. I don't remember really. And I remember jumping on the ice and thinking, oh boy, this is like, I remember thinking, this is for a lot of money. I was thinking about, making the playoffs or not, and I had to take a little loop out to kind of refocus and change my mindset because at first I didn't have the right mindset. But coming down when I picked up the puck, I don't even remember anything that was going on around. I just knew what I had to do and
made a great move. I know that
it worked out that time, luckily. But yeah, what a moment.
In the interest of time, we don't want to certainly go round by round through that postseason, but I guess the momentum from that takes you into the New Jersey series, and that felt like an easy series. I just my recollection of it was, it just doesn't feel like a 2-7 series. It just kind of rolled along there, and I know that's one of the ones where you got knocked out at some point.
The next series against Boston.
Oh, Boston's when you got hurt. Okay, all right. Yeah,
that one it was harder than I think it played out. I think we won in 5.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, we lost game 1 in New Jersey. We won game 1.
Lost game 2.
Lost game 2.
Yeah.
And I remember after 3 games, the reporters were over a few of us. I didn't have a point up to that after 3 games, and I know the pressure was building. So that's kind of what I remember. It wasn't an easy series by any means.
Okay.
For me anyway.
I felt like it, but I did feel like our strong defensive play carried over. Like the way we played in that Ranger game in Game 82, and the detail that we played with. Lappy had the shot block in that series. I mean, the sacrifice that was taking place in front of me, you just knew that this was a team that was dialed in. And I just want to make sure that I didn't, screw it up. Like that was basically when a team's playing like that in front of you as a goalie, just don't give up the bad ones, right? If you can just do your part, eventually, with the process, you're going to get the job done. And we did. I mean, we were a team that like Danny said, I mean, we were a good team on paper. And when we played the right way and we played the way we did in that series, we were tough to beat. And we probably weren't a 7th seed at that point because of the way we were playing.
And that Boston series is another one that everybody talks about, and obviously the final is probably the big one. But that Boston series, you're down 3-0, but I think 3 1-goal games if I'm not mistaken, and it was not a 3-0 series by any means. Didn't feel like it, and I think after Game 3 was that you felt like you guys were kind of right there.
Yeah,
you just needed to.
I remember we had a meeting in the room, and the feeling was we should have been up 2-1, or at the worst case down 1-2 in that series, and it just didn't make sense how it had played out. A lot of the times when you end up, and it's happened a couple of the times in my career where I was down 3-0 after 3 games, and it's pretty much the end. It's tough so you try to save face and win at least one game and take it one at a time. But that specific series was totally different for me. I felt I was sitting there feeling like we're right in it. We just need to start to get some bounces our way. We're right in this game, in this series, and it played out that way. I'd be lying if I said I knew we'd come back, but I know it was a lot tighter than
when Krejci went down, when Krejci got hurt, that was an opening. Yeah, for our team. And we didn't win Game 3, the game that he got hurt.
Correct. And Simon Gagne came back in Game 4. Right. So that's a big shift when I talk about bounces. That was one bounce that kind of started things for us. Yep.
And again, that Game 7, you go down 3-0, and the comeback there was almost a microcosm of the whole series. Yeah. And I'm not sure what your status. Were you there?
Okay. Yeah, I was there. But you could feel that late goal. Late in the first to make it 3-1, you could feel it in the crowd. Everybody they got nervous. They got tight.
Yeah.
You could see the Bruins start to get tight.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could feel it on the bench, but from afar, you could see it. Like, you're like, whoa, if they can just harness this, we're back in we don't score that goal late in the first. I don't know if it goes
I agree. I didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
We came back in the locker room. We were down 3-1, and it was silent. Guys were pissed. We felt like we had blown this game at that time. The part that I didn't realize at that time was, the series we were down 3-0, and all of a sudden it was 3-3. In that game, they were up 3-0 again, and then they could feel us coming. But I didn't realize it. For us, like, it was dead silent in the room. The guys were livid with themselves. Like, again, we've put ourselves in that position. But like Boucher said, that goal was huge, and I didn't realize it at the moment.
So you get through that series, and then meanwhile, over on the other side of the bracket, Montreal is taking care of Washington. Montreal takes care of Pittsburgh. All of a sudden, I know on the front office side of things, we show up. All of a sudden, we got to host game one in the conference final. Like, we weren't quite ready for that. And that, I feel like that series just kind of felt inevitable after what they'd been through in Boston. And you get the strong goaltending from Mike Layton again because everybody, you kind of just rotating in and out as folks could play. But that you get to the end of that series, you're on the doorstep now with the Cup going to the final. That's got to be a big moment, I would think, for both of you.
I was injured for that series, unfortunately, but. Again, looking from afar, you're looking at a Canadiens team that was completely out of gas.
Yeah.
I mean, they took down the two biggest opponents in the Eastern Conference. You talk about catching a break along the way. For Washington and Pittsburgh to be eliminated, it was like the stars were aligning for our group that it was going to work out for us.
And we didn't, it was tough for Montreal because they, first round, they had to stop Crosby and Malkin, and then it's Ovechkin and Backstrom. And they get to the Flyers. Who do we have to focus on stopping? Our superstar could have been Pronger on defense, but do you put players on Pronger to stop them? And then we had pretty much 3 scoring lines. So it was a total different approach or different teams they were facing, and the confidence we had against them to play in the regular season every time we played them, and they tried to play tough against us. We ended up winning that battle. So I was very confident in that series, probably more than the first 2.
And then obviously the final doesn't go the way anybody wanted to, but what stood out to me were the 2 wins here in games 3 and 4, one of them in overtime. I mean, that's probably the loudest I've ever heard this building has had overtime win. Those are once in a lifetime moments sometimes to get wins in the final in your home building.
Yeah, and what I'm really proud of, we put up a fight.
Yeah.
We never stopped. We battled all the way to the end. It didn't work out that way. It was a good team that we faced also. Honestly, still feel to this day it could have gone either way.
Game 1 goes the other way. You never know, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is, but certainly proud of that team.
So just 2 more here to wrap things up. I want to not sum up the next year in just one question, but that early 2011 span there, January, I feel like is maybe the best I've ever seen this team play in person. Rolling along there at the top of the league that season, it ends up being a 106-point year. You win the division. Obviously, unfortunately, it didn't carry over far enough into the playoffs, but. What clicked with that team? What was like being part of that run?
A little bit of part of it was the confidence from the previous year, a lot to prove, getting so close, wanted to prove that we had the team to go back, and a lot of the players were back too that following year. I think there's a lot of confidence going into the season.
And I think being used to having because Lavi came in almost partway through the season, probably 20-something games into the
it was
the year
December
prior.
6th. It was the day before his birthday.
Yes.
I remember.
So now you get him for a full year. I think that helped, and on the scene comes Sergei Bobrovsky too, who was a real talented goalie that I don't think anybody saw coming. And truthfully, he had a great rookie year, and I think his play was a real positive for our club too, because Michael Layton had back surgery, went to the minors. And I thought Bob and I did a good job of forming a pretty good tandem.
Solid,
But let's be real. As good as we see as Bob is right now, you could see it right then and there that this kid had talent, and I think that energy helped our club too.
Sum it up here. What does it mean to you to have been a Flyer, to have been a player in this organization? Obviously, you're doing your things now, but what do your playing days mean to you?
Well, I was drafted by this team in '95, and I regretted every day that I when I was traded, because I feel like I probably said some things that I shouldn't have said, and it hurt, and it cost me staying here, and I regretted that. And I was just so grateful to get the opportunity to come back a couple of times. This organization means everything to me. I mean, when you're drafted by a team, you have a special connection with that city, with that organization, the history of the team. And I wanted to, so badly add to that history. Unfortunately, never had a chance to win. Didn't get it done, but in the end, I'm proud to have been a Flyer. I'm proud to still be around the team and calling games for the Flyers. I love this organization. I love the city. I'm proud of Danny and what he's doing right now, and Jonesy. It's a great family to be a part of.
For me, I wasn't drafted by the Flyers, but I chose this team. So the same feeling of, being grateful, apply here for me and my family. It's an amazing organization. I kept hearing before arriving here that it was one of the best organization in all of sports. That Mr. Snyder was one of the best owner of any sports. And I'm really lucky that I got to experience this. And again, today we're still here. It's pretty amazing.
All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you for the time. Thank you for the stories, and enjoy this rest of this run here. It's halfway point of the season, so we got a lot of hockey left to play.
Thank you.
All right, Danny Briere, Brian Boucher with us here, part of the Flyers Quarter Century team, presented by SAP.